I never meant to create a monster. I meant to create a shield. When my father left, the house grew quiet in a way that felt predatory. Silence stalked the rooms, waiting for the right moment to pounce. My mother learned how to be smaller in those days, folding herself into corners, speaking in half-sentences, apologizing to empty air. I was 12, old enough to understand fear, young enough to believe it could be beaten if I stood tall enough. So I hardened myself. I told myself that kindness was a luxury for people who were safe. I decided I would never be caught unprepared, never be the one begging, never be the one left behind. Each time the world tested me, I sharpened my edges. Each insult became a lesson. Each disappointment, a brick in the wall I was building around my heart. At first, people admired it. Teachers praised my confidence. Friends leaned on me when they needed strength. I learned how to speak in a way that commanded attention, how to look people in the eye without flinching. I learned how to win arguments, how to leave conversations feeling taller than when I entered them. But strength, when fed only fear, grows hungry. By the time I was 25, the shield had teeth. I didn't just protect myself, I dominated. I cut people off mid-sentence. I dismissed emotions as weakness. I told myself I was being honest when I was really being cruel. When coworkers hesitated, I pushed harder. When friends complained, I reminded them that the world was worse than I was. And when people left, I told myself it proved I was right. The monster I created wore my face. It spoke in my voice. It justified itself with my past. And it was very, very good at surviving. Then my neighbor moved in. Her name was Mrs. Alvarez, and she lived alone in the apartment across the hall. She was small, with silver hair that never quite stayed pinned and hands that trembled when she carried her groceries. On the first day we met, she smiled at me like she'd been waiting. "You must be the one with the heavy footsteps," she said gently. I almost corrected her, almost bristled at the comment, but something about her tone disarmed me. It wasn't judgment. It was observation, wrapped in warmth. Over the next few weeks, she found reasons to talk to me. She offered extra soup she'd made. She asked for help changing a light bulb that clearly didn't need changing. She listened more than she spoke, and when she did speak, her words moved slowly, as if she was placing them carefully between us. I didn't know why I tolerated it. The monster didn't like interruptions. But Mrs. Alvarez never challenged me, never tried to fix me. She simply existed near me, calmly, kindly, like a quiet defiance of everything I believed. One evening, I came home furious. A project at work had gone wrong, and I'd lashed out at a junior colleague in front of everyone. I told myself they deserved it. I told myself it was leadership. In the hallway, Mrs. Alvarez was sitting on the floor, her grocery bag tipped over, oranges rolling toward my feet. Without thinking, I kicked one back toward her. She looked up, startled, then smiled anyway. "Thank you," she said. Something in me snapped, not anger, but exhaustion. I crouched down and helped her gather the rest. My hands moved faster than my thoughts, and before I could stop myself, I said, "You should be more careful." She nodded. "I know. My hands don't listen to me like they used to." I waited for the familiar tightening in my chest, the urge to correct, to dominate the conversation. Instead, there was only silence. "You're having a hard day," she said. It wasn't a question. I stood up abruptly. "You don't know anything about my day." She didn't argue. She just said, "I hope tomorrow is softer with you." That night, I couldn't sleep. Her words echoed, not because they were sharp, but because they weren't. No one had ever wished softness for me before. I had built my life to avoid needing it. The next morning, I received an email. The junior colleague I'd humiliated was transferring to another department. No complaint. No accusation. Just a quiet departure. I stared at the screen, waiting for the usual justification to rise. It didn't. All I felt was a hollow thud, like something heavy had fallen inside me and broken. I avoided Mrs. Alvarez for days after that. The monster didn't like mirrors. But kindness has a way of being patient. When I finally ran into her again, she was watering the plants outside her door. One leaf was yellowed and drooping. "It happens," she said, noticing my gaze. "Even when you do everything right, some leaves still fall." I surprised myself by asking, "Why keep trying then?" She looked at me for a long moment. "Because the plant doesn't stop being worthy just because it's struggling." The words slipped past my defenses and settled somewhere deep. That night, I thought about the boy I used to be, standing in a quiet house, promising himself he'd never be weak. I realized no one had ever told him he was worthy without armor. The monster had been loyal. It had kept me standing when I thought I would break. It had protected me when no one else did. But somewhere along the way, it stopped guarding the door and started deciding who was allowed to live inside. Change didn't come like a revelation. It came like a bruise you keep touching to see if it still hurts. I started small. I apologized to the colleague who left, knowing it wouldn't undo anything. I listened in meetings instead of waiting to speak. I caught myself mid-sentence and softened my tone, even when it felt unnatural. Every act of kindness toward others felt like betrayal at first. The monster whispered that I was inviting danger, that softness would be punished. Sometimes it was right. Not everyone deserves gentleness. But some people do, and I had been treating them all the same. Mrs. Alvarez grew weaker that winter. I began checking on her, bringing groceries, fixing small things around her apartment. One evening, she asked me why I was so angry all the time. "I was scared," I said, the truth surprising us both. She nodded. "Fear is a powerful teacher," she said. "But it shouldn't be the only one." When she passed away in her sleep, her apartment felt emptier than my own ever had. At the memorial, her niece hugged me and said her aunt talked about me often. "She said you had a good heart," she said. "Just buried under a lot of armor." I went home and sat on the floor, the same place where oranges had once rolled toward my feet, and I cried. Not quietly. Not neatly. The monster didn't know what to do with grief that wasn't weaponized. I didn't destroy it. I couldn't. It was made from my history, my survival, my love for a frightened child who needed protection. But I learned how to leash it. How to thank it for what it did, and how to tell it when to step back. Kindness, I discovered, isn't the absence of strength. It's the decision to use strength without cruelty. I created my own monster because no one taught me how to be gentle with myself. Learning kindness didn't make me weaker. It made me human again. And every day, when the world tests me, I choose, slowly, imperfectly, to build something better from the same hands that once only knew how to harden.